Let us begin a new chapter today, Expert Detectives from your main textbook. Okay. So open your main textbook. Open your main textbook. Open the chapter Expert Detective. All right, students. Okay. Page number 85. Yes. So, Expert Detective is a very entertaining story about two children who has a knack for investigating other people. They have this detective spirit in them. They feel like they should investigate a person. They should find out more about a person for whom they have a lot of curiosity. And that person is Mr. Nath. We will find out how these two siblings, Maya and her brother Nishad, they find out more about Mr. Nath. Okay. So expert detectives refer to these little children, these two little children who has this very expertise in being a detective at such a young age. Okay. So let us start the story. Open your book, page number 85. As we walked back towards the clinic, Seven said, "He doesn't look anything like a monster, Maya, but did you see how thin he is? Maybe he's very poor and can't afford to eat." Okay, so Nishad, who is the younger brother, he believes that Mr. Nath is a very weak, a very sickly man. So he thinks that he is not able to get proper food. That's why he is starving, and he appears like that. He appears so sickly. But Maya is of a different opinion. Let's find out. "He can't be poor if he's a crook. On the run," I said. "He's probably got millions of rupees stashed away somewhere in that room." So Maya was the elder sister, and she has a more cynical mind. She's very doubtful about Mr. Nath, and she believes, she's of the conviction that he's just a criminal on the run. Crook means an evil person, and Mr. Nath, she believes, is an evil person who is running away from the hands of law. Okay, he's trying not to get arrested, and that's why he's hiding here. And she believes that he has a lot of money, a lot of wealth at his disposal, for which he is hiding himself. Okay. "Do you really think he's a criminal, Maya?" "He doesn't look like one." Nishad looked doubtful. Okay, so Nishad looked very doubtful about whether he was actually a criminal or not. And so he said, "I do not believe, or he doesn't look like a criminal." "Of course he's 1'7", and he certainly isn't starving." So Nishad has another nickname, that is 7. So Maya said that of course he is a criminal, and you know what, he is not even starving, that he's getting proper food every day. He's not going without food. We already know the meaning of word starving means to go without food for a prolonged period of time. So Nishad believes that he is simply starving because of poverty, whereas Maya believes that he is a criminal who has a lot of money at his disposal, and he certainly isn't starving. Why? "Mr. Mehta told us that Ramesh brings his meals up from the restaurant downstairs." So Ramesh was the worker at the restaurant, and Mr. Nath used to get restaurant food every day. Okay, so he ordered restaurant food every day, and he brought it from upstairs, from downstairs. That means he cannot be poor, because if he's poor, he won't be able to afford the food. "But Maya, Mr. Mehta told us he doesn't work anywhere. So how can he possibly have money to pay for food?" Nishad said. Nishad was an innocent little boy, so he asked his sister that how can he get the money to pay for food, because we already know Mr. Mehta has told us that he doesn't go out anywhere to work. So how can he possibly get the food? How can he possibly manage the money for food? "Exactly," I exclaimed. "He must have lots of money hidden somewhere. Maybe in that trunk in his room. It's probably full of silver and gold and jewels and—" What rubbish? Nishad interrupted. So, Maya had a more imaginative mind, and she believed that he had all this big things in his room, all this stashed away jewelry, money in his room, expensive articles, okay, full of silver and gold. He has a lot of things like that. So she believed all those things, but Nishad shut her off. He broke her off mid sentence and he said, "What rubbish? That is, whatever you are saying is completely nonsensical." "I know I'm right, stupid," I told him. "By the way, Seven, did you see his scars?" "I couldn't. It was too dark. But I bet he got them during a shootout with the police or something." So Maya said to him that, "Did you notice his scars? How his scars were?" I didn't know. I was not able to see it properly. It is written on the back of the book, back of the story. Uh, Sharoda Divedi. Okay, that is the writer, name of the writer. And Maya said that, "Did you see the scars? It was so dark, I couldn't see. But I bet that he got the scars because of a, you know, interaction with the police. Because maybe there was a shootout which he had to face, and because of that he got the scars." Nishad said, "Mummy told us quite clearly they were burn scars." Okay, Mummy told us, that is their mother informed. Their mother actually worked as a doctor, and her mother had told them that it was a burn scar. The scar which was there in his face was because of something, burn injury. Okay. "Perhaps the police had to set his house on fire to force him out," I suggested. Seven looked unsure. So Maya is thinking all the different bad things about Mr. Nath, but Seven, or Nishad, he has a sympathetic view of the stranger. Okay, so Maya thinks that maybe because he was such a big criminal, the police had to force him out from his house, and so the police set his house on fire intentionally to get him out from there. Okay, but Nishad didn't believe it. He felt unsure about it. On the Monday following Mama's birthday, Seven went On the Monday following Mama's birthday, Seven went alone with her to the clinic at Girgaon, as I was spending the evening with a school friend. When they returned, Nishad told me he had been to see Mr. Nath, and I felt most annoyed that I hadn't been there. So, on the following Monday, that is, they had their mother's birthday celebration one day. Okay. So, mute your phone, mute your, yes, okay. So, Nishad had accompanied their mother to the clinic, but Maya couldn't because she spent the day with her friend, with her school friend. And then when Nishad re-entered, that is, returned back from there, he told his sister that he had gone to see Mr. Nath. Now let's find out what they did, or what he did. Seven had been quite upset. Okay, Seven and Nishad refers to the same boy. Okay, his nickname is Seven and his name is Nishad. So he had been quite upset about Mr. Nath's gaunt appearance. He was a sensitive and kind boy. He thought that Mr. Nath was not getting proper food to eat, and so he was very upset because of the thin appearance of Mr. Nath. Okay. Thin appearance of Mr. Nath. And what did he do as a result of that? As a result of that, what did he do? He Okay. So as a result of that, he tried to go to his room to give him some food, and let's find out what is the food that he got. Okay. Turn off your mic and turn off your video. Shomojit. Okay. Seven was quite upset about his appearance, and he thought that he was starving. So what did he do? He told me that he had Shomojit is not in our class. Then why did Shomojit join? Wait. Some mistake must have been there. Anyway, so what happened? Mr. Nath, Mr. Nath's, yeah, Mr. Nath's sickly appearance, it disturbed him so much that he thought that he would give him some food. Okay. He told me that he had knocked loudly on Mr. Nath's door that evening and said, "Open the door quickly, Mr. Nath." So he had knocked on Mr. Nath's door that evening and he has said to Mr. Nath that open the door. The man had opened it and asked him, "Lost another marble?" So this word of the man tells us that Nishad had earlier been there to their room again. Okay, he had again, this is the second time he was in his room, and Mr. Nath remembers that this little boy had come earlier to look for marbles. Okay, to look for marbles. Okay, then he had obviously recognized my brother. "No," said Nishad. He had taken the man's hand in his own and thrust a bar of chocolate into it. So Nishad was such a sweet boy. He gave him a bar of chocolate. Okay. Because he believed that Mr. Nath was not getting sufficient food, he gave him a chocolate. "Did you get a chance to peek into the trunk, Seven?" I asked. So did you go into the room and did you peek? Did you look into the trunk what it has? So maybe there was a trunk in his room which the children had seen earlier. A trunk means a metal container for storage equipment. Okay. So maybe they had a curiosity about what was in the trunk. Maya was probably of the conviction that the trunk contained loads of money or jewelry or both. Okay. But Nishad looked disappointed. "He didn't even ask me in," he said. Then he smiled. "But I did find out something, Maya. I went down to the restaurant where Ramesh works and talked to him." So Nishad had gone down to the restaurant from where Mr. Nath used to take his food every day, and he talked with the restaurant, the person who worked there, that is Ramesh. And Ramesh did something. Told him some information. We'll find it out. "Good for you, Mr. Detective," I said, patting him on the back. "I hope you questioned him properly." So good for you, Mr. Detective. It's very good that you have done this. And I'm glad that you have done your detective work. I hope you questioned him properly. Seven looked pleased. "Ramesh told me that he takes 2 meals for Mr. Nath every morning and evening, and 2 cups of tea, one in the morning and one in the afternoon. This is what he eats every day. Ramesh says he's not very particular about what he eats. It's always the same food: 2 chapatis, dal and a vegetable. Mr. Nath pays cash and tips well. So that means he had good money. Ramesh told me something very strange, Maya. Almost every Sunday, he carries 2 lunches to Mr. Nath's room, and the same man is with him each time. He's tall, fair, stout, and wears spectacles. Ramesh says his visitor talks a lot, unlike Mr. Nath, who hardly speaks. So this is another information they got about Mr. Nath. First of all, they understood that Mr. Nath took 2 meals every day and twice he took tea. And Ramesh carried the food upstairs to his room, and he was paid in cash. Okay, and he also gave good tips. And another information which they found out was that Mr. Nath had a visitor every Sunday, and this visitor was quite talkative man. "Well done, Nishad," I told him. "Now that we have made some progress with our inquiries, we'll have to sort out all the facts like expert detectives so that we can trap the crook." Now Maya was still of the belief that Mr. Nath was a crook, an evil person, a criminal. Now she said, "Now you have done a good lot of work about Mr. Nath. You have found out a lot. Now we have to compile whatever we have got and find out more so that we can catch this crook." "How do you go on, Maya?" Seven said. "How can you possibly imagine he's a crook? He looks so ordinary." So actually, even though Nishad seems to be the little That means he seems to be the younger brother, but it seems that he is more matured than his sister, because his sister has all these creative stories in her head, whereas Nishad is quite practical. As he says, he looks quite ordinary, he looks very ordinary, and so he's not really a crook. Okay. Criminals can look quite ordinary, Smarty, I retorted. Did you see the picture of the Hyderabadi housebreaker in the papers yesterday? He looked like any man on the street. Nishad looked doubtful. So Maya is also correct, because sometimes the criminals don't always look like criminals. You cannot always imagine that a criminal should look like a criminal, right? They might not have a stereotypical look. The criminal can be the criminal can have any kind of appearance as long as they are criminals, and it's probably their job to look ordinary. And she also gave him the example of the Hyderabadi housebreaker whose picture was printed on the newspaper yesterday, and she told him that he looked so ordinary. Nishad looked doubtful. That is, till now Nishad didn't believe it. Okay, he didn't believe that this man can be a criminal. The monsoons broke the next day. Dark clouds accompanied by blinding flashes of lightning and roaring rolls of thunder burst with all their fury, flooding the streets with a heavy downpour. School was to have reopened after the summer holidays, but no traffic could move through the flooded roads, and there was an unexpected holiday. I thought I'd spend the time usefully. I sat at my desk in our bedroom with a sheet of paper before me. So, the next day, when the school was supposed to start, monsoon broke in. That is, rain clouds came and lots of rainfall happened, because of which what happened? The streets were flooded. Okay, the streets were flooded, making it impossible for them to carry on normal life. And so the school had an unexpected holiday on that day. Maya thought that she would utilize that time wisely, and she sat in front of her desk with a piece of paper. I wrote in large block letters, "Catching a Crook. Expert detectives Nishad and Maya Pandit by appointment to the whole world." Okay, this is what she wrote in a big paper. Then I began writing. About half an hour later, I turned towards Seven, who was lying on his tummy, chin cupped in his palms, reading comics. "Want to hear what I've written?" I asked. So Nishad and Maya are two different individuals, even though they are brothers and sisters. Maya was so much preoccupied with Mr. Nath and about how to catch him or trap him. Nishad was enjoying his off day with a comic, something quite common for young children. Then Maya told her that, asked him whether he wanted to know what she has written. He looked up questioningly. "I have listed all the facts we know about Mr. Nath, which might help us to trap him," I said. "Want to hear what I have written? You want to hear?" Seven nodded. "Fact number 1, I read. His name is Mr. Nath. We must discover his first name." "Do you think that's his real name, Maya?" Nishad asked her. "Do you think Mr. Nath is his real name?" "Probably not. Most crooks have an alias." Okay, alias means like an alternative name. Okay, the name with which you go by, also known as. I added a big question mark after Nath. "Fact number 2, or rather, an alias means a name with which you hide your real name. Okay, disguise your real name. Fact number 2, I read on. The tenants at Shankar House say he's mad, strange and unfriendly. So the place, that means the apartment where he stays, the building complex name is Shankar House. Maybe their mother's clinic is also in the same building apartment, and that's why they have got a chance to meet Mr. Nath. Then they found out that the people who live there, they believe that the other tenants who live there, they believe that he's mad, okay, and he's strange. Number 3, he doesn't talk to anyone and is mannerless. He does not have proper manner and he doesn't talk to anyone. But he did talk to us, Maya, and Mama says he's very polite, Nishad interrupted. He only talked to us because he had to. I said. And since he was under Mama's medical treatment, he had to be polite. Fact number 4, he doesn't receive any letters. 7 nodded. Number 5, he's been in room number 10 of Shankar house for more than a year. Number 6, he doesn't work and sits in his room all day. Number 7, the kids in Shankar house and even some of the grown-ups are scared of him. Number 8, he has no visitors except for a spectacled, fair, fat man who visits him on Sundays for lunch. Fact number 9, food and tea are taken to his room by Ramesh from the downstairs restaurant. He doesn't care what he eats, pays his bill immediately and tips well. That ends my list. Have I forgotten anything? 7. So today I'm going to stop the class here. Maya seems to have quite a systematic memory, don't you think? Because she has systematically written down whatever facts they could have gathered about Mr. Nath, and she's sure that she can trap the man if she can investigate a little bit more. But Nishad seems to be unsure, and he believes the humanitarian side of this all, and he believes he's a good man. Okay. So students, I'm going to end the class now. Do not leave the call. Let me take your attendance. I hope all of you have understood this part.